The situation on the border has many Texans calling on state and federal leaders to act, but there is division on just what type of action to take. We're getting new insight on what Texas voters think about the steps that lawmakers are taking to address border security. For more insight, we are joined now by Jim Henson, the Executive Director of the Texas Politics Project at the University of Texas. Jim, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate that.
Great to be back.
You know, you polled some Texas voters about these contentious border bills that we mentioned the governor signed earlier this week. What did that reveal in the poll's findings?
Well, what we found is that, for the most part, there's a majority support for the major proposals, including a lot of the stuff that the measures that Governor Abbott just signed into law. But that support, not surprisingly, is much stronger among Republicans and independents than it is among Democrats. So, for example, on increased state funding for the wall and other kinds of barriers, 61% overall, 32% did not support it, but 90% of Republicans supported that measure, only 7% opposed. Democrats, not quite the inverse, because 29%, a little more than a quarter of Democrats support that, though 61% opposed. Independents kind of in the middle there. Illustrates in a lot of ways why this is a good issue for Republicans. Republican voters, including primary voters, love measures like this. Democrats, on balance, don't favor them, but there are enough Democrats that are okay with it that it makes it a pretty good general election issue, too.
So taking a look at that and other issues, this year we saw the regular legislative session followed by many special legislative sessions. It's been tireless work for the lawmakers, and they obviously want to point to some of the accomplishments that they believe they made during those times, including property tax relief. But how did that translate to voters' impressions about what work happened at the Capitol this year? Yeah,
that was one of the more interesting kind of broad results of the poll. I mean, it's like a Bermuda Triangle of public opinion between what voters say they support, what legislators did and didn't do, and now that it's all over, we think, at least for now, what voters expect. So a lot of the issues that you mentioned, that the legislature and the governor engaged, were issues that voters support action on. But when we ask voters how confident they are in the key areas, less than a third of voters said that they were either extremely or very confident that the legislature had, for example, reduced property taxes enough to make a difference, improve the safety of public schools, increase security on the border, increase the reliability of the grid. So what you see is, in a lot of areas, the legislature trying to follow what they think people are asking for, but the public's still skeptical that it's actually going to have the kind of impact that they want.
Now, before we let you go, we are in the holiday season. In that spirit, we're going to stay on that for a moment. What from your polling shows something that Texans agree on, something a little more positive that we can all hang on to right now?
Well, I don't know that I can come up with anything that everybody agrees on right now, but I think if you're looking for good news going into the new year, we are beginning to see a little bit of easing up of people's negative attitudes towards the economy. Views of the economy have just been dismal, and what we saw was at least some slight improvement in a few of our indicators, which means that I think the lag that we see in improvements in the economy is beginning just a little bit to affect voters' views. So happy holidays.
We'll take it. Jim Henson with the Texas Politics Project, thank you as always.
Great to be here.
Our communities are so intertwined that it's so hard to actually separate them.
The state's new border law already faces court challenges, but while the law is in limbo, it's still having an impact. We look closer at the concern from border communities. Ted Cruz is calling out the president on immigration, but how accurate are the numbers he's using to make his point? Our campaign context report coming up.